So we're going to start this section by basically reviewing some of the fundamentals that we've already learned. We're going to be reminding ourselves how to select vertices, edges and faces. We're going to look at how we can select each of these and change what selection method you use. And we're going to look at the difference between grabbing, rotating and scaling with each of these selection methods. And I'm going to be using the hotkey, which is the tab button. Afterwards, we're going to be giving you a couple of challenges. So let's go into Blender. So first thing we need to do is we need to go into edit mode. We do that by either coming down to the drop down menu and pressing edit mode, or we can press the tab key. The tab key is used to move between edit mode and object mode. We have three different selection methods. We can select vertices with this box here. This box allows us to select our edges, and this box allows us to select our faces. Note that you can apply multiple selection methods at the same time. At the moment, I have face select selected, but say if I wanted to select vertices as well, by holding down Shift and then click, I now have two selection methods available. I can select my face, or I can select my vertice. I can also do this with all three. So I will activate Edge Select, and now I can select edges, vertices and faces. So what's next? Well, let's have a look at how grabbing, rotating and scaling works, and it's best to try and remember this in a specific order. Faces can be grabbed, they can be rotated and they can be scaled. Edges can be grabbed, can be rotated, but can only scale on a 2D axis. Vertices can be grabbed, cannot be rotated, and cannot be scaled. Let's see what I mean by this. So I have this face selected and I'm going to press G. I can move it about, no problems. Escape. How about edge select? So I select an edge, grab. No problem, I can grab and manipulate that edge. Let's have a look at vertices. Grab a vertice, press G to grab, and I can manipulate the vertice. Terrific. So in terms of grabbing, we can grab all three without much difficulty. Now let's move on to rotation. Starting with the face, I will select a face and press R. We can see that we can rotate the face. To make it easier, we can rotate along an axis, so the Z axis for example. What about our edges? We'll select an edge, rotate, and we can see that although slightly restricted, we can rotate our edges. Rotate along the Z axis. We can see that this is indeed possible. Scaling, however, let's try scaling. Pressing S. Very interesting. We can scale our edges. However, we can only scale an edge by its length, because an edge is a 2D part of your 3D mesh. So any edge can be scaled in size, however, it can only be scaled in its length. Finally, let's move on to vertices. We'll grab a vertice and we can see that we can move it, no problems. Now let's see our rotation. We can't rotate it. Let's try scale. We can't scale it. The reason why is because you can only rotate and scale things that are made up of different coordinates. For example, this edge, if we look in the scene properties, if we select an edge, we can see it has transform options. It has transform coordinates. Vertexes also have transform coordinates. However, the big difference here is that the vertex coordinates are locked to that coordinate. So unless you grab and move your edge, if you grab or move your vertice, you can change the coordinate. However, because a vertex is a single coordinate, you can't rotate it, nor can you scale it. So the best way to remember this is faces you can grab, rotate and scale. Edges you can grab, rotate and scale, but there are restrictions. Vertices you can grab, but you cannot rotate and you cannot scale. Now, it's time for a challenge. So let's have a look at our challenges. I want you to experiment with moving vertices, edges and faces. So I want you to just getting used to what you can do, what you can't do, etc. We're then going to create a periscope. Now, for this challenge, because it's your first modelling challenge, we're creating a very basic periscope, so I'm very quickly going to do one for you. So, back into Blender, I'm going to now make a periscope. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the length of my cube by grabbing this face, and I'm going to pull up on the Z axis. This pulls my entire mesh up, so it's another way of scaling. I think it needs to be a little bit thicker on the Y axis, so I'm going to grab this face and I'm going to grab it on the Y, and I'm just going to make it a little bit thicker. That will do. Finally, I am going to create my periscope shape by grabbing this same face on the Z axis and moving up. So grab and move up. And there's my periscope. Actually, I think it would be better if I made it thinner. So let's make this thinner, see how it looks. This is all part of the editing process. You'll do something, you'll think, does that look great, does it not? And you'll make changes. This is how 3D modelling generally works. But there we go. I think that will do for my periscope shape. I know it looks very simple, guys, and it is very simple. Just a couple of button presses, but that is a very basic periscope. What I want you to do now, guys, is to create your periscope. You can use the same method that I did. You can use the scaling method to scale the whole object if you prefer, rather than just dragging faces individually. Either way works fantastically well. and experiment about with it, guys. So complete those 2 challenges, post your periscopes in the discussions, and I hope to see you in the next lecture.